In this video tutorial, we are going to learn about a few basics about Dataweave. So I'll use an HTTP listener to get the requests. Let me set the properties for this listener. Set up a connector configuration. I'll set the port to 8085. Okay, base path, I'll leave it blank. Next, I'll add a transform component wherein we can write our Dataweave scripts. So here is a transform component. So once we have this transform component, we can see there are three sections. One is the input, the other one is the output, and this is the place where you write your Dataweave script. Along with this, you can also see the preview. So before we start, let's import a sample data using define metadata. I'll add and create an employee JSON, create type. Now from type, I'll select it as JSON and I'll select the type as example because I have an example for this. So I'll import this. Okay, I already have this employee JSON. I'll paste it over here in examples. Paste. Okay, I'll remove this from here. So go back to define metadata, employee JSON, type as JSON, scheme example, and then I have this employee JSON. Let's open this. So this is my employee JSON. It has employee ID, name, then a JSON object and an array. Please select. So it's resolving the metadata, and that would appear to the left side in the input section. Soon we'll be able to see a JSON example over here. So it's still resolving. It will take a moment. So here we have the payload with us, and we can see there's an employee ID, name, salary. Perks is a JSON object which contains food coupons and expiry, organization and entities. Now if you want to see this example, you can put right click over here, right click on this payload, and we can click on edit sample data. So here we have the sample data. For a better view, I'll rather open it from here. This is my sample JSON. Identities is a JSON array and perks is a JSON object. So now if we see the preview section. There is no preview yet, but it's running the preview, so the preview should be up in a second. So now if I enter EID, let me change it to EID as get from payload dot employee ID. So even this preview would take some time. See, so the preview has been generated, and we can see this EID is one which has been taken from this example. As you can see, this is one, and it's type number class of java.lang.integer, and then it finally converts as an object because the output type is application Java. Now if I add another field, for example org, add payload dot organization, it will show org as string since it is a string. Now suppose if I add ID and use payload, okay, we need a comma over here, payload dot identities. You see, it transforms this into array list. Now let's move back to JSON rather than Java. So here is the JSON format. Employee ID has been translated into EID, and organization has been translated into org, and ID has been translated, identities have been translated into ID. Now suppose I don't want all the IDs, I want a single ID. So it's pretty simple. All you need to do is put the index, that is 0, and then you get the ID. Change it to 1, you get the second ID in the list. This is how you can manipulate. Now suppose if I want an XML output, so how are we going to do this? All we got to do is change this to XML, but it doesn't work out. Why? Because XML should always have a root element which is missing over here. So how do we figure that out? So to get this, I'll just use an employee. This is the first part, and there we have employee is a root element which contains employee ID, which is EID, organization name, and path. Now what if I use ID? So it will print as it is, all of them. Now suppose I want to add attributes to it. So how am I going to do that? I want an attribute called as EID in this. Pretty simple. Cut this from here. And attributes can be added by using add symbol followed by round brackets, parentheses, and paste it over here. So as you can see, employee EID equal to 1, organization KNS, and ID is Aadhaar. So this is how you generate an XML. A few points to note. If we go to the configuration XML, we see that this has been translated into a script, and the script doesn't look nice from readability point of view. In this XML we have the script, So to improve the readability, what we can do is we can externalize this script. So how are we gonna do that? It's pretty simple. Let's go back to the transform, and what we can do is it has started from the beginning. Yeah. So what we can do is we can click on this icon, edit current target. Output should be payload. I'll move it to a file, and I'll name this file as emp, and it will make this as emp.dwl. If you can see in the resources, we have emp.dwl, and it has moved the script to this file. If you open the file, you can see the script. So now if we go back to the configuration XML, what we can see is EE message, and inside the message we have set payload and resource is emp.dwl. Again, there's another feature wherein we can also add variables in the transform itself. How do we do that? Click on add new target, select variables, enter the name of variable. Suppose I'll add name of the employee. Let's put it in a file and name that file as name.dwl. By default, the extension taken would be .dw, so I just need to write the name of the file, and there it is. Let the output be application Java because it has to be inside a variable. We don't need this curly braces. All we need is payload dot name, and there we have the name. Suppose I want to set up another variable, so let's set up one more variable. Put it in file, name it as org, and name it as organization. Okay, so here we have organization, and I'll change this as payload dot organization. So if we go back to the configuration XML, what we can see is two parts. EE message contains your payload, and EE variables contains your variables. So we have a set payload, the script is written in emp.dwl, and in variables we have variable ename and variable name org, which also refer to their respective DWL scripts, which are file based. So from readability point of view, this looks good as compared to having all the DWL code inside the single XML itself. So now let's see if it works. Our target is we'll pass on an input JSON, and the JSON would be of this type, and in turn we should expect an XML output, which should look the preview is yet to come. In meantime, I'll add okay, so the output should look something like this. So let's add a logger over here. Place a logger over here, and in this logger I'll print the variables which were present. Let's add the variables. It's vars dot ename. Let's concatenate both of them. Vars dot org. So here we have the organization, and the payload would be returned back to the client. So let's run this project, see if we are getting the expected output. So the application is deployed. Let's try to hit a request. I'll change the name which was default as Samir. I'll add Yash. Okay, and change the employee number, and let's see if we get the expected output. It's taking time. Okay, so the request has hit here. So in log we can see we had logged the employee name and the organization name, so both have been concatenated. And if we see the output, we get EID as 2 and org as KNS and ID as other. So it's as expected, as we expect. So this were the few basics of DWL. In later videos we'll dive deeper into DWL. I'll be using the same example and try out multiple combinations using this DWL. So basically in this DWL what we have learned is how do we import an example JSON, use that as input to get an output and see the preview. Then what we learned is how to get output as JSON, Java and XML, getting an attribute inside an XML, traversing arrays using DWL, and finally externalizing the DWL, which is in turn a good feature which improves the readability of the code. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching.